Welcome to the Texas Values Report. This is Jonathan Saenz, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you on another glorious week in the state of Texas. Did you miss me last week? I wasn't around. I wasn't out that long. But I did take a couple of days off to soak in the new year, reflect, eat some black-eyed peas. Actually, I didn't eat the black-eyed peas. I went to the grocery store because, of course, I had a few people over on New Year's Day to watch the Peach Bowl with my Longhorns. And listen, if the Aggies were in the playoff, I'd be talking about them as well. SMU made a little bit of a run too, so we appreciate their involvement. But I had some people over for that game, and I bought the can of black-eyed peas and did not eat them. So I don't know. Does that mean I'm not going to have a good year? I don't know how that all goes. But I do like black-eyed peas just in general. So I guess I could still eat them, and maybe that will count. But had some sparklers at the house New Year's Eve, and got up bright and early for a 12 o'clock kickoff there and out of Atlanta. But I will be at the Cotton Bowl, as a matter of fact, Friday, I hope. I mean, I'm not going to, go out of my way too much, or as far as take too much risk, because I have my 3 teenage kids that are going to be with me. But it is my intention to be very persistent about getting there, considering when I purchased the tickets, it was quite the sacrifice for the cost. And they're not anything fancy. I'm at the top of the stadium. I'm just glad to be inside the door, particularly since it's going to be 32 degrees outside. So, if you want to chatter about that when you see me on social media, there'll be some politicos out there too, some folks I've talked to that are going to make their way over to the game. But, reflecting a little bit on what happened last year, what's happening this year. And, it doesn't take a lot of time. All you have to do is open up your social media app or whatever, and you find out it's not like the world stops because you step back for a day or two. And I'm glad, because there's a lot of important things we need to be doing. And I appreciate my team covering a lot of things for me, if you will, and stepping in, particularly in this show. But the show must go on. And, I have a little coat on just to, because I don't get to wear it very often, just to sort of empathize with all y'all out there in the cold weather and all the complaining we're going to do the next 2 or 3 days. That's probably already started. Maybe you'll be out of school. You'll have some fun with it. But I have to leave right after this meeting, and I'm allergic to cold weather. So, being from Houston. Nonetheless, we've got a great guest today on the Texas Values Report because, listen, the legislative session starts next week, a week from yesterday, as a matter of fact, January 14th. The Senate is going to swear its members in, and the House is going to, they're going to do a lot of stuff over there. They're going to pick a speaker. They're going to do rules. That could be going on for quite some time on Tuesday. We shall see. One way or another, the members will be at the Capitol. I will be there. Our team will be there. We'll have people there to assist. We invite you to come to the Capitol. And someone who will be there getting a part of this process again is Senator Bob Hall, who is one of the veterans now. And that's not just because he went to the Citadel. He is a proud graduate of the Citadel and was a second lieutenant in the United States Air Force before his time serving as a state senator up there in North Texas. But look, he's been around this block several times and is someone that you can always trust and leads on the issues that we care about. Senator Hall, welcome back to the Texas Values Report.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it very much. Appreciate all that you guys do to in support of what we're trying to do in the legislature.
Well, look, there are a variety of different steps and, aspects to the process. I like to remind people we do everything involved in the legislative process except push the button to vote on the House or Senate floor, and we don't sign legislation into law or veto things. That's what Governor Abbott does. But I'm going to make sure one of the things I can do, too, while I'm here is share this live feed on my own account. We invite you to do that as well so more people can see and be part of this conversation that we're going to have with Senator Hall about some bills that he's filed, but also about some different, maybe predictions or ideas of how the session's going to go and how it's going to start, and some new players, if you will, into this equation. Senator Hall, you and I have worked together in our team on several pieces of legislation, values issues, if you will, and, many of them are very basic, and I don't want to, I'd love to, just before we get into a couple of details about some of the bills, just overall, how you're feeling coming into this legislative session with, to be expected, a little bit of wind behind your back and many other members, and some momentum and, optimism, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about the second chance that God gave us back in November by putting Trump back in office has certainly raised the spirits of those of us who love liberty and appreciate our constitutional republic. To see us moving back to the right and moving back to respecting individual rights and moving away from the socialist bent that we'd been on with Obama and with Biden is certainly raised the spirits of myself and most everybody I've talked to. And as I'll say, one of the things that I've noticed about the general atmosphere is just the commentary that you're hearing on news. It's moved away from the things that lost it for the Democrats. I don't see the focus on the transgender issue. I don't see the focus on the open border is a great thing, et cetera, all of the stuff. And then, of course, with Biden pulling some of his insane tricks of pardoning really, really bad criminals. I'm not talking about somebody that may have made a mistake and got put in jail by having made a dumb mistake, but pardoning people who had killed dozens of people and then giving out the most prestigious award the office has to people like George Soros and Hillary Clinton, who are so un-American, it's hard to imagine. But then you see people in general, and as I mentioned earlier, just the number of people you wouldn't even think pay any attention to what's going on in politics. When something good happens, they do the little Trump jig, the little.
Don't make me kind of get it going here. I don't know if I can.
It's kind of hard for me to say it without having that feeling of just making one of that good feel move.
I don't know how he does it.
Move. And that's kind of, I think that's the interesting thing. That's kind of the mood that I see of the folks is that, hey, it's a new day.
Yeah.
It's a new day. We don't have to spend as much time now worrying about what is the federal government going to do to us next.
Well, and you call it, he's got his groove going, he's got a bounce in his step, swagger probably fits better with Trump, right? It's a little bit of swagger, but it's subtle too. It's not all, hands waving everywhere. It's just kind of right here. It's this controlled, like, yeah, we're back in charge. We're back, baby. And, look, the things that Biden's doing right now, the pardoning of these just, awful criminals and so on, is another reminder why the election was absolutely important. Winning, no doubt. I mean, it had to happen. But that is just the beginning, right? The real work, or the important work is now going to continue in policy. And so what Biden's doing now is reminding people, oh, yeah, it was important to win, and it's important to undo or turn things in a better direction. Otherwise, you're going to see more of this, and you're going to see this mentality, this arrogance, right? It reminds me of one of these criminals. I don't know if it was someone that was pardoned, but up in the Northeast that was, laughing and sort of mocking. I think he attacked some police. It was a legal immigrant and, some awful crimes, and just sort of, smirking at the cameras and the television, right? And some of that I feel like is this attitude of, what are you going to do to me? Like that at the end of the day, that America's not really going to be that hard and firm and, on these type of issues and follow through. A new day's coming. And I think a lot of people like these, illegal immigrants and people that are committing these horrible crimes, they know it. They know that, come January 20th, if not before, that a page is going to be turned. And, we're going to get back to doing things that are common sense. But, a big part of that is just establishing there's law and order, and we're going to keep our people safe. And if you're one of those people that commits one of these crimes, you're going to pay a price, a high price. And I know those are things you care about. Look, some of the stuff that's happened in the military, I know that's dear to your heart in the background. But I also think it gives a lot more momentum and excitement, or however you want to term it, for legislators at the state level, because you don't have the Biden administration trying to take away from what y'all are doing, complicating the message, talking to school districts and saying, oh, don't listen to the state leaders because we're the federal government, we're going to take your money away, whatever the case may be. So it clears a lot of that up, and it makes these issues very simple. And you're right, this is a reflection of what voters have said. They've had enough with a lot of these things. Some of those issues relate to some bills that you filed. Senate Bill 84. Here we go. Basic. People say, why do we have to do this? We shouldn't have to. You're right. But we do, right? We've got to have something that defines male and female for purposes of government documents. We've seen this come up with driver's license and other circumstances where people want to inject confusion. What's the feedback, if any, that you've gotten so far since you filed that bill?
Really mostly positive.
Yeah.
Like amazing. Why in the world, like what you said, why in the world we have to do this? Well, we have to do this because we have people who've lost their compass. We've got it wasn't too long ago we had 54 genders. Now I think we're up to somewhere
right.
70.
Was that on Facebook or somewhere where it was like this long pull down list? Crazy.
It's kind of like, well, there are some things that you don't get the option of defining. I believe in individual liberty and personal rights and things like that, but there are some things that for the good of everybody in general, that you just don't have the right to change. And one of those is one of the God rules that was put into place when he divided us between male and female. Very clearly, no question about it. There are two sexes. Now, yes, there are some anomalies that take place, rare exceptions where people have a little bit of a problem with what body parts they're born with. But the rule is male and female. It takes one of each to produce another human, and there's no way around that. So the folks that want to pretend there is, where we've had people wanting to have their birth certificates changed, wanting to have their driver's license changed, wanted to use for whatever perverted reason, men wanted to use the women's bathrooms, etc., which is all are disruptors to our society.
Well, and you know this
of other people's rights.
You got to have some consistency on these issues. And before it wasn't even a question, right? But we've seen over the past decade or so, people try to chip away at these things. They try to, make everyone concerned about saying, hey, this isn't right, or we need to have some clear standards, since people are trying to say, define themselves as a woman even though they're not, And so I think the time has come for these things. And I think President Trump and that administration will be right in line with these things. I want to mention one other thing, too. There's a couple of Texas people going up to the Trump administration that have a lot of experience in the Texas legislative process, and I imagine won't be far from the conversation. Brooke Rollins, who's going to be the Secretary of Agriculture. Little shout out to the Aggies there, since y'all, give me some grief earlier about my Longhorn references, but a proud graduate of Texas A&M University. Brooke also ran Texas Public Policy Foundation and was one of the leaders for America First Policy Institute. Recently, Scott Turner, a member of the Texas House, former member of the Texas House from the Plano and North Texas area, proud graduate of, I'm forgetting, J.J. Pierce, I believe, in Richardson, and played football in the NFL. But Scott Turner's headed up there to the Trump administration. So, and other folks, too, I'm sure we'll hear about that have connections in history with the Texas legislature that I think could be of value as we get into, look, I think it's an opportunity to do what, the things that have been waiting because of the House sometimes. Speaking of, okay, I know you're not in the House, but one of the biggest things that's going to happen next Tuesday is a vote for the Speaker of the House. And it looks like there's not going to be any agreement before then. It's going to be David Cook or Dustin Burrows. Will there be some surprise third candidate? I don't know. I guess it's possible. But look, I think a lot of people agree that that's what's been holding us back, is not having the right type of leadership in the House for several sessions. How do you see this playing out over there across the hallway from y'all?
Well, I think it's going to work out. I think they'll go through the machinations. It's going to be the aftermath of it that's probably more interesting than the event, because the Republican rules call for the speaker to be elected in caucus, and there was a caucus vote, although many people walked out of it. It will still go to the floor, and that decision will be made there. Then you'll have one of two, and I think that I think once that happens, that things will settle down. I think the message that the people were sending out there about wanting the House to get on with doing the people's business and quit playing games, I think it's being heard. I just think we need to get past this. Let's get started and get on with it.
Yeah.
And my feeling is that either way, we're going to have a better session than what we've had for the last couple in it. I will be extremely surprised if there, no matter which side wins, if there are Democrat chairs.
Yeah, look, I think that's a big issue too, though, right? I mean, that's what I think people feel like divides the two camps, if you will. David Cook has specifically said he will not support Democrat chairs. I mean, if he becomes Speaker, he makes that decision, right, of the chairs of the committee. And Dustin Burrows has either said he would allow Democratic chairs, or he's been vague about it. But that's the grassroots have been saying, enough with all that. Y'all settled that issue over in the Senate. But I have to say, it's got to be frustrating to some extent that y'all have to pass bills over to the Senate time and time again to have another shot because the House hasn't been getting things done on a lot of big issues or slowing things down. And you know, the fact that there were several special sessions last time in 2023, a lot of that had to do with the, House leadership and other people dragging their feet or just not letting bills come to the floor, or bills that have no business getting to the House floor for a vote that squeak their way through because you have Democrat chairs and others, and it clogs up time, and so I would imagine that's got to frustrate you and your colleagues over there at the Senate every now and then.
Oh, very, very, very frustrating. A lot of good bills we got passed, a lot of good election bills, election reform bills that we badly, badly need, could not even get a hearing in the committee. And not and interesting enough, that particular committee was chaired by a Republican, but it was the determination of the leadership not to allow anything election to get passed. And then the machinations we went through with school choice, which was so unnecessary to address the issues. Yes, the issue of teacher pay needs to be addressed, and yes, parental rights in deciding the education of their children needs to pass. The two are only indirectly related. They should not be in the same bill. And hopefully we will get both of those taken care of this time separately. Yeah, it's frustrating to see good bills go over there and just die.
No, you're absolutely right. You also have a couple of bills that relate to parental rights. One about requiring sex education, if it's going to be taught, that parents have to first give their permission, not after the fact and opt out of it. That's Senate Bill 87. Senate Bill 113 requires consent from the parents for a child to have a psychiatric exam on the child in school. Look, I mean, the school districts and people in public education have gone, in government education, schools K through 12, they are gotten way out of control. The disrespect for parents is as bad as I've ever seen it. And that's why a lot of people are supporting school choice, because they've had it with the public school system. But this is things that a lot of Democrats agree on. A lot of moderates, people in the middle, whatever. I've been to some school board meetings in Austin ISD, and there are people in the rainbow crowd, far left, whatever, and they're also there saying, yeah, why am I not being told about these things about my child ahead of time? So it could be an opportunity for some common ground, particularly with the election results having a lot to do with the disrespect of parental rights. And so, look, I think those are going to, anything related to education, but related to supporting and making sure that parental involvement and role is protected, that's going to be huge this session.
Oh, absolutely. In our issue about teaching sex education, this was a bill that got passed before, but unfortunately had a sunset on it.
Yep.
And it has now sunsetted. And so this bill is simply bringing back something we had already agreed to, already doing, that the parents get informed well ahead of time and have to respond positively that their child may participate in the sex education program at the school. It's nothing elaborate about it, nothing complicated. It's just a parental subject, a subject that is primarily the responsibility of the parents and how they want it taught to their children, to make sure the parents have a say in it if it's going to be taught in school. Not that they end up coming home from school one day with some work assignments that when the parent reads it, they're appalled at what they're seeing and saying, you know, why in the world can you be teaching my child this? This is not consistent with our beliefs or our thoughts or our philosophy in this area. So it's a sensitive subject that I think more respect to the parents with this bill, and I don't anticipate any real problem with this bill.
Yeah, look, and you know, our organization, we try to talk to as many members as possible, whether they be Republican or Democrat. You know, let's get as many people on board. Let's have. It'd be great to see unanimous support in the Senate. I think it'll be tougher in the House. You don't need that in the House to get something passed. It's a simple majority, but I always think it's a good sign. And, you know, look, and who are the school districts going to hide behind, right? They've got TASB and all these people saying, well, the Biden administration says this and that. No. The Department of Justice says this. No. Those people are gone, okay? And none of that stuff was federal law to begin with. They tried to influence the process. They tried to influence these local school districts. And now they're going to have to answer to states, and they're going to have to start respecting parents. And this heat around the school choice issue is going to have a lot to do with it as well. So, and look, I you know what'd be interesting too? Listen, we have a Faith and Family Day too coming up March 14th, usually a flashpoint during the legislative session. January 14th is the first day of the legislative session. We invite people to come to the Capitol. You want to get involved and meet with your elected official about the Speaker of the House vote in the House. That's great. Also on the Senate side, a lot of members have receptions and food, and everyone's just a little bit easier to access on that day and say hello. Our office is right across the street if people want to do that. I know Senator Hall always has an open door policy on to have people by and say hello and get to know them, particularly constituents. But, you know, it would be interesting, Senator Hall, if we saw President Trump make an appearance. I mean, look, with his relationship with a lot of members, yourself, the Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General Paxton, and so on, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him make an appearance during our session, you know, to come to the Capitol and, you know, just to say hello to some people and, you know, like you were talking about in the beginning, give people a little, you know, a little shot, a little juice, a little excitement and, you know, that strength, right, that comes with his presence and that optimism. And I don't know, maybe the Lieutenant Governor will let him on the dice at the Senate and he'll do his little dance and it'll be like talked about for who knows how long.
Now, that would be great. I mean, Texas is this kind of state.
It's very important to the country, the administration. And I think Trump's got a little soft spot for our state.
Yep, absolutely. I think there's no question about it. And I think we'll see it when the reach. I mean, one of the first things he's mentioned about ending at the federal level is the Department of Education. And
that's right.
You mentioned earlier, worried about, well, they've said the federal government says this said that about education and so on. Got to remember, the federal government has no say in our education at the state level. The only reason they're involved is they give the state money.
Yep.
And then people say, oh, we don't want to give up that federal money. We'll do whatever they want us to do. So we have a lot of stuff that we do because of that money, and hopefully that will come to an end, which includes a lot of testing, evaluation that's going on of kids, of stuff that nobody has any right to be doing.
No, you're absolutely right. And the border security issue. I mean, that was a huge issue for the election, something that the Trump administration cares very strongly about. You know, look, this impacts families, right? Whether it's the human trafficking issues, you've got the sexual exploitation of people that are coming across the border legally and illegally, I would imagine, and the impact that it has on that southern region. We saw a lot of the south part of the state. Some of those counties go from blue to red, if you will, from Democrat to Republican. I have to think some of the frustrations on the border security issue. So I see that. I see Governor Abbott coming out with the school choice issue being an emergency item like it was last time, border security, parental rights, I wouldn't be surprised if the protection of these private spaces in the showers, locker rooms, and so on is a big priority for Governor Abbott, because I know the Save Women's Sports issue was as well. But we'll find out pretty soon. We're about to run out of time. Listen, Senator Hall, thanks for all the work that you do. Your service to our country and the military has been fantastic. The way that you serve in the Senate, the relationship and the connection that we have to work with you and do great things together has been tremendous. And, you and Kay are a great team, and we look forward to seeing you again and getting some good work done at the state capitol.
Well, thank you for the kind words. And I can say exactly the same thing about you and Jonathan and Mary and all the rest of those down there that work with you. We can always count on them being here, supporting individual rights, parental rights, and protecting our religious principles. So thank you for your effort, all of what you do. We appreciate it. We can't do it without you. Keep it up.
Thank you, sir. Senator Bob Hall has been our guest today on the Texas Values Report. Okay, I got 25 seconds left. I love talking with Senator Hall because he knows how to get into deep in the issues, but that's left me with just a little bit of time wrapping up. January 14th, come to the state capitol, the first day of the legislative session. You don't have a ticket, have a ticket just to get into the capitol. It's open to the public. Texas Faith and Family Day. Put it on your calendar. March 14th. That is the big event that we do with a lot of other groups. Come to that event. If you donated last year, you prayed to us, whatever, we had a tremendous end of the year. Thank you so much. It was very fruitful. Puts us in a strong position as we start this new year in January and we get ready for the legislative session. And if you want to be an intern, we've got some spots open. You want to do some work with us during the legislative session, it's one of the best training grounds that you can have. And, people that have worked with us, whether it's an intern, a staff member, some of them have worked for the Trump administration. Many have gone on to law school, undergrad, run their own business, worked for the governor. There's very few places, and I think this is one of the best places that you can get some training. And you're going to see events coming up online and out there in the public on some training we're going to help people do to get ready for the state legislative session. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll be there at the Capitol next week on January 14th as the fun begins for 140 days, and who knows, there may be overtime. And I might just have a little bit more pep in my step if the University of Texas Longhorns are headed to the national championship game. So pray for me as I try to travel up to Arlington later this week. So, and listen, if you see value in our work, it's a great month to give. You don't have to just give in December. We still have bills this month as well. TXVALUES.org. Make that tax-deductible donation right now so you can help protect faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And we'll talk to you next week on the Texas Values Report.